Morning class. So this is going to be the do now for today. So what I recommend doing is read it and then pause the video, try to solve it out. And then once you're done solving it out, press play again. So in order to find how many cubic units, so each one of those little boxes is considered one cube, right? So if we look at the bottom of it, right, it is 3 by 2. So on the bottom, right, we can see that there are 6 cubic units. And I'm using the visual to the right as a better way of seeing that. So the visual to the right is basically splitting up the visual to the left to make it a little bit easier to see and understand. So there's 6 units or 6 cubic units on the bottom, and then it's layered 4 deep. So the shortcut, what we can do is after you find out 6 by doing 3 times 2, we can multiply that by the height, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, you could add it to itself 4 times, but the shortcut of repeated addition is multiplication. So multiply 6 by 4. Okay, then we have 24, okay, cubic units. Okay, what we just found there is what is called the volume. So the volume is how many cubic units make up any type of three-dimensional figure. So if you think about it, the formula that we just came up with is we multiply the length by the width, which is 3 times 2, and then we multiplied it by the height. So actually finding the volume is easier than surface area, which is what we did yesterday. So if we scroll down, it's to show another example of a visual of this. So if you look to the right, you can see that it is 4 by 3 on the bottom. So it's 4 boxes by 3 deep. So the length is 4 and the width is 3. So what we have there is the base, which is the area of the bottom. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, and then you multiply that by the height, which is 5. Okay, and that's how we find the volume. So if you scroll down, this is going to be what are the notes for today's lesson. So the volume is a measurement of space inside a solid figure. It is measured in cubic units. So the way that we say it as cubic units, but it's always going to be raised to the third power. Okay, so again, here's that example that I showed you before. This right here is just the link to where I got this visual from. All right, so I'm going to be showing an example below. So the formula for volume is length times width times height. So LWH is usually the way that it's going to be shown. So if you see this on like a state testing like NJSLA or PARC testing website, a lot of times it won't show with the multiplication sign. It's going to show LWH. As you guys know, when there's variables next to each other, that means multiplication. Just like if a number is next to a variable, like 4x, that means 4 times x. So LWH means L times W times H. So what we do is we follow the formula. We do length times width times height. So if you look at the visual to the right, what we have here is 4 inches by 2 inches by 3 inches. So 4 times 2 times 3. So the order in which you multiply these actually doesn't matter due to the commutative property of multiplication. So you can choose to multiply them whichever order is easier for you. Sometimes some numbers are a little bit more compatible than others. So you may want to do that differently. In this case, it's the same amount of work, right? 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. Or 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. If you notice to the right in the visual, what I did was I shaded it in the base. Okay, so a different formula that you can use for any prism is find the area of the base and multiply it by the height. So if you think about it, the first step that we did was 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 is the area of the base. So if you have the area of the base of any figure, you can just multiply it by the height. So this applies to something that is not really part of the 6th grade curriculum, but when eventually you can find the volume of other prisms, like triangular prisms, by finding the area of the triangle and multiplying it by the height. But for right now, I'm just going to be showing you both ways with rectangular prisms. So if you look here, the other formula is volume, which is V equals base times height, otherwise known as BH. So the base was 4 times 2, which is 8. So if you follow this formula, the first step you do is find the base and then just multiply it by the height. In reality, it's the same amount of work, but what they're getting you ready for here is the 7th grade geometry. All right, so this is a question that usually stumps a lot of students. So what I says is, what is the volume of a cube with a side of 1 foot? And then what is the volume in inches? So the first question is pretty straightforward. Usually there's not too many issues. So here's the visual of what it would look like, and actually the answer as well. Okay, so here is a cube that is 1 foot. So 1 foot times 1 foot times 1 foot. So I plug it into the formula. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1 cubic feet, or 1 cubic foot. So a lot of times when people are like, well, what is it in inches? And people are like, well, 1 foot is 12 inches. So it's going to be 12 cubic feet. It's actually not. So the thing is, with when you do anything with computing with units of measure, you have to convert it before you compute, before you multiply. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to convert the 1 foot to inches. So it's going to be 12 inches times 12 inches times 12 inches, which is 1,728 cubic inches. All right. So this lesson, like I said, is a little bit easier than yesterday's lesson because all you do is length times width times height. Sometimes you have to solve for the missing measurement. So if we scroll back up here, I'm going to show this example. So let's say I knew that the base was 8 inches and the volume was 24, right? You have to use inverse operation to solve for the variable. Okay, so there might be a couple of questions like that as well. All right, so let me know if you have any questions or anything else that you want me to go over, and I'll post a video later on that. All right, guys, so have a good rest of your day. I'm going to be posting the questions that you're going to be having to do along with this video.